Welcome to the Tech Index AI podcast, May 13th, 2026, where we blend tech IP data, reports, and charts with the latest news and all things logistics with a focus on air cargo. So today we are diving into a massive global domino effect.
Right, yeah. It really is a huge chain reaction.
Yeah, I mean, if I told you that a single geopolitical conflict back in February is the exact reason your tech stocks plummeted this morning, you might think I'm jumping to conclusions.
It definitely sounds like a stretch at first glance.
Exactly. But today, we are tracing that exact invisible domino effect. We are looking at how disrupted oil supplies are just completely reshaping air cargo rates and bleeding right into the broader economy around you.
Well, to really understand the scope of this, we have to look at the catalyst, which was the late February U.S.-Israeli attack on Iran.
Right, and just to be super clear for you listening, we are strictly looking at the economic and market impact of these events today.
Oh, absolutely. Just sticking to the data.
Yeah.
So the ongoing conflict and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz have severely bottlenecked the global crude supply.
Which is a massive deal.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, we see the consumer side of this at the pump, right? Regular gas is hitting $4.50 a gallon.
Oh man, yeah, my wallet definitely feels that.
Right. And that is actually a 50% jump since late February.
Wow. But let's move past the morning commute, right? Because I like to think of jet fuel prices like the water pressure in a city's plumbing system.
Oh, that is a really good way to look at it.
Yeah, so when the pressure spikes at the main valve, in this case the Strait of Hormuz, it doesn't just burst a pipe, it completely changes which faucets you can afford to turn on.
That makes total sense.
Right. It forces airlines to fundamentally reroute their entire networks to survive. So if the pump hurts this much, what happens when you have to fill up a massive Boeing 777 freighter?
Well, it completely rewrites the baseline cost of moving goods. If we look at the latest data from the TAC index, the global Baltic air freight index is up a staggering 35.8% year over year.
Wait, almost 36%?
Yeah, exactly. And for context, that index essentially acts as the heartbeat monitor for what it costs to move goods by air globally.
And just to clarify, this data strictly excludes sea container capacity, right?
Correct. Sea freight isn't in our source data here. We are just looking at air cargo.
Yeah.
But even still, the jump is massive.
But wait, I'm looking at the hub breakdown in the TAC reports here, and this doesn't totally track for me.
How so?
Well, if fuel is up globally, shouldn't a fuel shock hit everywhere equally? Because outbound rates from Chicago just surged 14.1% week over week.
Right, right.
But then Asian hubs are mixed. Like Shanghai actually dipped slightly this week, even though it remains up 36.1% compared to last year. Why the huge discrepancy there?
Well, that really comes down to the market adjusting to a radically new operating environment. When jet fuel prices spike, airlines instantly adjust their fuel surcharges.
Okay, that makes sense.
But a route out of Chicago might absorb that cost easily because of high local demand for outbound capacity.
I see. So people still really need to ship stuff out of Chicago regardless of price.
Exactly. But in a softer market like Shanghai, forwarders are fighting for volume. So to stay competitive, carriers often have to just eat that fuel cost themselves rather than passing it on to the customer.
Oh, wow. So they're eating margins on certain lanes just to keep the planes full.
Precisely, yeah,
Mm.
which suppresses the immediate rate growth we see in the index for those specific regions.
So why do these air freight and fuel numbers matter to your wallet right now? Let's cycle this back to the wider economy for a second.
Yeah, let's look at inflation. It is running at 3.8% right now.
Which is officially it's outstripping wage growth, right?
Right. Wage growth is at 3.6%, so inflation is higher for the first time in 3 years. That gap basically means consumers are functionally taking a 0.3% pay cut in real hourly earnings.
Ouch.
Yeah, it hurts. High logistics and fuel costs are just baked into the price of everything, making inflation incredibly sticky.
And when you realize your spending power is shrinking, you stop buying things like electronics, fast fashion, and premium goods.
Exactly. And that drop in consumer spending directly loops back to gut the volume of goods needing to be flown out of major manufacturing hubs like Shanghai in the first place.
It creates this vicious cycle for freight forwarders.
It really does.
Yeah.
And this underlying pressure is also exactly why we see the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq dropping right now.
Oh, right, because entrenched inflation has effectively killed Wall Street's hopes for a Federal Reserve rate cut this year.
Exactly. The market is reacting to that reality.
Which actually brings up one fascinating silver lining, or I guess a strange paradox anyway. With gas at $4.50, Global EV demand has risen for a second straight month.
Yeah, consumers are definitely trying to flee combustion engines right now.
But wait, this logistics crunch specifically limits the supply chain for those very EVs, doesn't it?
You hit the nail on the head. You have rising demand for EVs colliding with an air cargo and logistics network that is incredibly expensive and constrained.
Because you can't magically fly in lithium batteries or auto parts on the cheap when air freight costs are up nearly 36%.
Right, so the supply chain for the solution is being choked by the very problem consumers are trying to escape.
Wow. It really perfectly illustrates that massive global domino effect we started with.
It absolutely does.
Which leaves you with a final thought to ponder today. If a single geopolitical choke point can rewrite global air cargo rates, drain your wallet, and tank tech stocks, just how fragile is our supposedly resilient modern supply chain?
That is a very important question to consider as we watch these cascading effects continue to play out across the market.
Until next time.